Hello and welcome to this webinar. I'm going to go ahead and give people time to trickle in and make sure I'm here to greet you as you come in before we get started. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Ayurveda. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Sexy sacred balance. Do, 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 do. I'm so excited. I am so excited about this webinar. Oh, hello, hello. Welcome. Let's see here. Welcome, Angela. Hi, I'm so glad you can make it today. Can you hear me today? Let me know in the chat box if the sound is working. I know last time there was a little bit of an issue with that. So I want to make sure that you can hear me nice and clear. So if so, you can just type a yes, I can hear you in the chat box. And speaking of the chat box, we'll wait for a few more people to trickle in here and give them a few minutes. But I'll reiterate this later. While we're in here, if you have any questions that come up for you, feel free to post them in the chat section, and then at the end of the slideshow, I will go over and answer any questions that you have to the best of my abilities, and make sure that you leave this webinar feeling super supported and feeling like you got what you came for, which is knowledge about how to maintain sexy, sacred balance the Ayurvedic way. So I will, let's see here, just a few more moments. Hello, Angela. Oh, can you hear me okay? Is everything good? Welcome. I'm so glad that you were able to make it back. If you can hear me, make sure to type that into the chat box just so that I know that everything is good. We are just waiting for a couple more moments to see who else trickles in. Yay, you can hear me. Awesome. We have success so far this time. It's so great. So just waiting for some more people to trickle in. A couple more minutes here, and then we'll just go ahead and get started. I wanted to let you know if there's anything that comes up for you, any questions that you want answered, make sure to type them in the chat box, and then there will be a session for question and answer at the end. I also want to let you know that there is a special gift for you at the end of the webinar. So stick around until the end, and I can't wait to share with you the special gift that I have. I did, and I believe, Angela, you got one of the gifts, which I hope you've enjoyed, but there's also another gift that I've put together just to say thank you for showing up for your sexy, sacred balance and taking the time out of your busy schedule to drop in and learn this valuable information about Ayurveda. Let's see here, it's 6:04, so we'll go ahead and get started, and I'm sure that people will trickle in, and I'll keep everyone as caught up as I possibly can. So before we get started here, I just want to shoot out just a quick thank you for showing up, and just thank you for trusting me with your minds and with the ability to share this knowledge with you, and I'm so grateful to do so. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. Give me one moment here. All right, so the screen is shared, and I just want to make sure that I got the chat up. All right, so the screen is shared. We've got our chat. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So this is a webinar on finding your sexy, sacred balance the Ayurvedic way. And I just want to go ahead and give you a little bit background, but just to let you know, like I said in the beginning, when you stick around until the end of the webinar today, I'll have some special gifts for you. First, what I want to share with you is my journey with Ayurveda. And I'm going to move this out of the way here. Hopefully it's not. Here we go. Alrighty. So my journey with Ayurveda and yoga. I started practicing yoga at the age of 16. So I've been practicing yoga for 11 years now. And growing up, both of my parents experienced battles with their health. My mother had cancer. My father had a plethora of different imbalances, from diabetes to sickle cell anemia. And both of them ultimately ended up losing that battle with their health. And they both passed away in hospitals. And so this was pretty hard on me. And the takeaway that I got from this was that, growing up, I couldn't stand seeing them having to take pills after pills after pills that cause side effect after side effect. And I always just wondered, is there a better way to address what's going on in their lives? There has to be. But I wasn't raised in a family that did yoga. I wasn't raised in a family that looked to holistic health for their healthcare needs. Instead, I was raised in a family that was more reliant on Western allopathic medicine. And because of that, there wasn't a lot of knowledge going around about how to take care of ourselves and find balance in a way where we're working on it every single day of our lives. Instead, it was like we get sick, something happens, we go to the doctor, and that's how we get it taken care of. This was something that just didn't work for me. I never felt comfortable being in doctor's offices. For some reason, it just, the sterile setting and just feeling like I was being asked a bunch of questions from a checklist and then kind of scoot out the door as quickly as possible, it just never resonated with me. So when my father passed away, and later, 3 years later, my mother passed away. And when that happened, I vowed to myself that I was going to figure out a way to maintain my health, because I didn't want to end up the way that they did, because these different imbalances that they were experiencing ran in my blood. They run in my bloodline. So I knew a lot about yoga, but it wasn't until after my mother passed away that I started to study Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is a Sanskrit word, which means the science of life. So it's a beautiful, amazing practice that was cognized by the ancient rishis over 5,000 years ago in India. And it's even said that there are traces of Ayurveda long before then. And it totally makes sense. You'll understand that once we get into the webinar, that a lot of this wisdom is very innate. It's all about the elements. It's about how the macrocosm, our world, is reflected in the microcosm, our bodies. And so I am going to share a bunch of juicy information on that with you today. And that's just my background. So now what I do is I devote my life to helping people find balance through this beautiful holistic healthcare program. And it's called Sexy Sacred Balance, with the idea that when you can maintain your balance, you can completely switch around your foundation. You'll feel confident. You'll feel ready to show up to your life, to elevate yourself, and you'll be able to do more for the people in your lives and the world. So we're going to talk about some pretty key topics here when it comes to finding balance. And those topics are, and just let me know. So I want to check in. I'm not exactly sure what you're seeing on the screen. I know that the slides are there, but I just want to make sure that none of it's blocked. If it's blocked in any way, please let me know and I'll make sure that we fix that. So going forward, the topics that we're going to talk about today are the two most important rules to remember when it comes to finding balance the Ayurvedic way. There's only two that you'll have to keep in mind. And once you know these, you'll pretty much know how to find balance the whole time. The next ones we'll talk about are the 3 pillars of health. There are 3 important pillars that help you maintain mind, body, and spirit alignment. And then the last things we'll talk about are the doshas, what they look like out of balance and what they look like when in balance, and how to maintain that balance. So I have a quote here from one of my favorite teachers, Maya Tiwari. And it says, "We are not meant to strive for perfection. Consciousness is the only perfection." And once we get into these teachings, that will totally make sense. But ultimately, it means that when we're fully aware of what's going on in our body and we're fully conscious of it, that's all we need. We'll be able to implement the right practices to help ourselves get out of balance when we're not in or get back into balance when we're out of balance, and we'll know how to tell what's going on and when to start making different changes. And ultimately, we kind of want to work towards implementing these changes over a long period of time, because the best way to work holistically is to work day by day and make sure that it's something that lasts over a long period of time, something that's sustainable. So here are the 2 rules to remember when it comes to optimal health and balance. The first is to favor opposites. When you're incorporating the opposite qualities of the imbalance you are experiencing, this can help you find balance once again. So some examples of implementing opposites would be if you're experiencing sluggish digestion or you feel heavy and dense after eating meals, try to eat lighter portions. Eat at a slightly quicker pace. Choose lighter foods over more dense foods. So, instead of eating foods that contain a lot of water, like avocados or cucumbers, you might choose foods like popcorn or white potatoes over sweet potatoes, which are a little bit more dense, or just anything that has a much lighter consistency. Leafy greens are great. And that's going to help you to get that sluggishness going. And we'll talk more about what that means in a little bit. If you're trying to reduce excess heat in the body, then you're going to want to incorporate cooling activities and dietary changes. So pranayama, for example, there's an amazing pranayama practice, and pranayama means breath control. So this is from the yoga portion of things. And it's called Shitali breath. And what you do, it's actually kind of funny. It feels kind of silly, but if you can roll your tongue, you roll your tongue like this, and then you breathe through your tongue like it's a straw, and it cools down the air as it goes into your body. And when you breathe into the belly. So what this does is it sends cooling air to your digestive fires. And if there's too much digestive fire, which causes excess heat in the body, it helps to cool that fire down. And when we're breathing into the lungs, we're actually breathing further than the belly. We're breathing into the cells. So bringing that cooling air in will ultimately cool off the entire body. Now, in this case, you'd also want to go towards cooling foods. So if there's excess heat, then maybe you do want to choose cucumber. Add some cilantro to your diet, some avocados, some lime, some coconut, those amazing cooling foods that also taste really delicious, and they'll help you to cool down your temper, your digestion. And then also, it's a mind, body, and spirit alignment game. And so sometimes you might have hot-tempered, angry thoughts, and you want to bring in some cooler thoughts at that time. You want to maybe try to meditate and just separate yourself from those thoughts and take some time to cool down. If you're experiencing dry skin and you often feel like you're more spacey than normal, you're not able to focus, you feel a lot less grounded, then it's good to incorporate unctuous practices into your daily routine, like self-massage with warm oils, or even unctuous, oily foods. You would add some ghee to your food, which is clarified butter. It's a little bit more filtered than clarified butter, but it's really important. It's considered to be liquid gold in Ayurveda. If you are vegan, then you would just add more coconut oil, maybe adding some coconut oil to your morning tea, or drinking golden milk with coconut oil in it. So you want to add in that wet, unctuous, oily aspect if you're a little bit more dry. So the next important thing you want to remember when it comes to balance is like increases like. You wouldn't balance cold by adding more cold. You can't calm a fire by adding more fire. And you can't uplift yourself by adding on more heavy thoughts. So the idea here is that if you're adding like anything that has a similar quality to something that's already coming up in your daily life, then you're going to increase that. And that's what throws you out of balance. So now we'll go ahead and talk about the 3 pillars of health. These are really important because if you can remember these 3 pillars of health, then you're pretty much set. And when you work on just making sure that you have balance in all of these places, you're going to feel overall pretty great. So what are the 3 pillars of health? They are digestion, what you eat and how you eliminate; sleep, how often you sleep, how much you sleep, I should say, and the schedule that you have for sleeping; and then sexual energy, which in yoga and Ayurveda, sexual energy doesn't just mean sexual activity. We'll get into that in a moment. So digestion covers what you put in and what comes out. You'll want to make sure you are eating properly for your constitution, and pay attention to your stools, as they can give you a great idea of what is going on inside of your body and with your health. And it's important to be mindful of what you are digesting spiritually as well. So we'll go back to that opposites bringing balance aspect. You know, if there's anything out of balance, then you're going to be mindful that you're not putting in more things that will throw you even more out of balance when it comes to your diet. And then also thinking about spiritually what you're digesting. What kind of music are you listening to? What kind of people are you around on a day-to-day basis? What are the thoughts that are going on in your mind? All of these things are things that we digest and assimilate into our mind, our body, and our spirit. And optimal health means having optimal balance in all 3 of those aspects. So the next pillar of health, sleep. Sleep is very important, and cultivating a proper sleep routine can help you with adrenal fatigue and regeneration of the cells. If it's accessible to you and at all possible, Ayurveda recommends waking before the sun around 6 a.m. and going to bed before 10 p.m. And this is because Ayurveda is all about aligning with the natural rhythms of nature. And so in particular, when you align with that waking before the sun and going to bed a little bit after the sun goes down, that's called the circadian rhythm. You might notice, I've noticed more in mornings when I wake up, this is about the time when the birds start chirping. So other creatures in nature follow these rhythms naturally, and we're animals as well. So once we start implementing this type of schedule, well, it'll be pretty easy to maintain. It can be a little bit hard at the beginning, but you'll notice that over time, you might not even need an alarm clock, and you'll just start waking up with the sun and feeling tired a little bit after the sun goes down. So during sleep, the body assimilates all of the nutrients needed for the body to function and for the neural pathways to be replenished. That is why sleep is so important. It is that time when you are taking in all of the nutrients from everything you've digested during the day and sending it to where it needs to go in the body to promote optimal health. The next pillar of health is sexual energy. Our sexual energy is our life force energy. It's our essence, and it governs our juiciness and our creativity in this life. In Ayurveda, the belief is that overindulging in sex can deplete the vital energies. Those are ojas, which it's a little bit advanced for now, but just something to remember. Vital energy is ojas. And on the other hand, the belief is that if you are not experiencing enough sexual activity, then you will experience a dryness to your essence. So that word, ojas, it's very important because when we start to lose our vital energy, there's a certain point of no return where we only have so much of it. When it starts to go away, then there's only so much that we can actually replenish, which is why this work is so important. Sexual energy can come from a multitude of things. It can come from dance, connecting with others intimately, or with yourself intimately. It can come from deep breathing into your womb space and doing practices that circulate life force energy through the body. And this can be done in yoga as well as some Taoist practices. And if you're adding more elements of kapha, which we'll talk about those later, this is also something that can increase your vital energy because ojas is the super fine essence of kapha. It governs connection and love and sweetness, as well as the immune system and how everything flows and functions smoothly. So you can do this by incorporating healthy fats into your diet and also looking at how you increase your sexual health. So making sure you're taking care of your womb and really looking at your sexual energy as well. And that just comes into play with different breath practices and yoga practices. So now we'll go into the elements and the doshas. So I hope you're picking up on all of this so far. Feel free to chime in the chat if there's anything that you're not understanding or anything that you maybe want to look at a little bit deeper. Thank you, Angela. It's awesome. Awesome. So glad. So let's talk about what the doshas are. The doshas are energetic qualities present in the body that govern different aspects of mental, physical, and spiritual health. In Ayurveda, we work with the doshas to determine the nature of an imbalance in a person's constitution. So your constitution is going to be that set point for the elements and how they show up in your body. And dosha means fault. So if you think about California, it sits on a fault line, and that's why they typically experience a lot of earthquakes. And that just means that the earth is constantly shifting. The tectonic plates are shifting in that space. So if we take that back to the doshas and our body, it means that the elements are constantly shifting as well. So the thing about this that actually when I learned this, it kind of took a little bit of pressure off is the fact that we are never in perfect balance, which means we don't have to ever strive for perfect balance. Perfection, it just doesn't exist. But there is a such thing as optimal balance and optimal health, and it's specific to each person. So we come into this world with a specific blueprint of how these elements show up in our body. And then when we go out of balance, what we're doing to get ourselves back into that sexy, sacred balance is working back to alignment with that initial blueprint. So the doshas are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Vata is a combination of ether and air. Ether is also sometimes referred to as space. Pitta is a combination of fire and water. And Kapha is a combination of earth and water. These are the main indicators towards balance. And when we can understand how these qualities show up in our lives and our bodies and our minds, we understand how we can work with them to find balance. So we're going to go a little bit into the qualities of the elements. Once you learn about the qualities of the elements, you'll be able to start and see how these different elements show up in your body. And you'll be able to just think about, oh, okay, a certain element is showing up this way. There's an excess of this. And so maybe I might be a little bit out of balance. So the first elements we'll look at are space and air. The qualities of these elements are light, mobile, always in motion, dry, rough, spacious, all pervasive and all encompassing. While it's very subtle, space is all around us at all times. It's clear and it's cold. The elements of water and earth are represented by the qualities of being heavy. When you think about mixing water with earth, you get that heavy mud, or just having a boulder, a heavy boulder. They're dull, they're unctuous and oily, slow, stable, slimy, dense, sticky, and cloudy at times. Fire and water show up as oily. That would be the wetter, more watery aspect. Oil, when you add it to fire, it increases the fire. So when you mix that fire and water together, that's how you get the juices going. That's actually where you get your digestive fluids from. And it's also how you can throw your digestive fluids out of balance. But we'll talk more about that in a moment. They're sharp, hot, light, mobile as well, but more in the sense of being transformational. And I also like to think of when I'm looking at a candle and I see that fire flicker, like the fire never seems to stay still. It's always in movement. And then the liquid quality. So how do these elements show up in the body? Ether and air, or vata, has the qualities in the body and mind and spirit of being lighthearted and easily detached. A lot of people with excess vata or more vata in their constitution, they're very easygoing. You can't really phase them with a lot. And when they get into their emotions, they easily move through them. They like to move in their body and they're highly energetic. I always think about children with this. If you have a vata child, or I shouldn't say a vata child, but a child with vata in their constitution, higher vata, they're probably all over the place. Like, just, you have to always keep them entertained because they're very energetic. They tend to have a more dry sense of humor sometimes. They're light sleepers. They eat light, but they like to snack throughout the day. They're creative and they learn really quickly. They can pick up on anything, but sometimes they're a little bit forgetful. So that's ether and air and how that element shows up in the body. Now we're looking at the kapha aspect, water and earth. So if you have more kapha, then your build is going to be a little bit more curvy and very stable, very stocky. I always think of like a linebacker. Like, you cannot push these people over. They're just very grounded in their foundation. And just really quickly to go back to vata, as I realized I didn't add this, is that when you have more vata in your constitution, you have a lankier build, long arms, long legs, sometimes crooked teeth, and just a thinner frame. So back to here to kapha and water and earth, you're deeply loving and warm-hearted. They have that beautiful sticky quality of just being someone that you just want to be around because it feels so good to be in their presence. They have large, round eyes that are usually pretty clear in the whites, and their teeth are usually very strong and white as well. They move at a slow and steady pace, but they have high endurance, so it's not easy to tire them out. They're pretty much emotionally stable, but when kapha is out of balance, they can get very stuck in their emotions. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But generally, kapha people are very stable in their emotions, and they're really good people to talk to sometimes because they can just hold space and they're not easily triggered. And then they hold on to information very easily as well. Now, it can take a person with excess kapha or a higher kapha constitution to learn a little bit longer to learn information. And so sometimes, they'll have to go over things a couple of times or have it reiterated, or they do better learning when it's hands-on. But once they get that information, it's there. They have memories like an elephant. So they'll remember things all the way back to childhood that most people are like, what? How do you even know that happened? You were only 5. And they just remember. They hold on to stuff very easily with that. And then we go into pitta, which is fire and water. So pitta is sharp and intelligent, and they tend to have a sharp tongue as well. If there's anybody who's going to be able to say something that hurts your feelings, it may be someone with more pitta in their constitution. But they're also very witty. So they're really good at telling jokes and being like right on the ball with it. They learn fast. They learn very quickly, and they also they know how to repeat back information. They're very wise. They have moderate digestion, and they tend to get extremely hungry. If you've ever heard of the term hangry, this actually comes from somebody who has excess pitta or more pitta in their constitution. So you want to make sure that these people are getting fed on a regular basis, very steady, and they like snacks as well. They have a steady Agni, which is their digestive fire. And that's because when they are eating the optimal way that they should, they're constantly feeding that fire. So having those meals, it's a little bit different from Vata, because with that Vata constitution, it means that they're kind of moving through the food very quickly, and that's why they need more snacks, because it just digests so quickly. But when it comes to Pitta, it's more about just a steady digestive fire and little pieces, those meals here and there, the snacks, they all kind of feed that fire and keep it going. Then they're also really good leaders, and they have a huge leadership mentality. They're great at giving direction. They're typically managers and bosses and CEOs of companies and entrepreneurs. They're extremely passionate, and they love what they do. They love deeply. They love their family members deeply. They're the type of people who will stand up for the people that they love no matter what. And they're naturally pretty muscular, or just they look like they have such an amazing physique. They'll look like they work out even if they don't. A lot of times they're the type of person who you look at and you're like, how do you maintain that amazing body? And they're like, I don't know. I eat whatever I want. So that's how you know that someone has a little bit more pitta in their constitution. So I love this quote, and this is from one of my teachers, Jackie Ray, who is the co-founder of the Yoga Veda Institute. And she said, each and every one of us are a unique manifestation of the elements. And that just goes back to what I was saying earlier about the fact that none of us are the same. And so when we're looking to find our sexy, sacred balance, we're looking to align with our own blueprint. And it's very unique to us. Every single person is like a snowflake. So we all have a different way that these doshas show up in our body. So while we all do have our unique way that the doshas show up in the body, there is one thing that we have in common, and that's typically what they tend to look like out of balance. So we'll talk about Vata dosha first. When Vata is elevated in the body, people tend to feel spacey and forgetful. There's a lot of anxiety, panic, and fear that will occur. You will notice dry and chapped skin or lips or dryness in the GI tract. And this looks like, putting on lotion and feeling like you didn't put on lotion, like your skin just eats it up. It's so dry. A lot of times they tend to be the people that worry. When Vata is out of balance, you can really go deep into worrying about the future, or worrying about the past, or worrying about other people. Tremors and tics sometimes occur. There's constipation and dry stools, low appetite, and sometimes even rapid and excessive weight loss. So it can go either way. So here are some concepts to help you balance Vata. First one is routine. Because Vata is so mobile and all over the place, they need to have structure. It's that opposite that helps to implement balance. So it's good to make a list or set a schedule for your day, or keep a planner. Just do something that helps to keep you on track. I know for me, Vata is one of the higher doshas in my constitution. So when I sit down to work, I have a sticky note that has a list of the 5 things I want to get done in a day. And I'll give myself breaks in between, because being Vata, it's a little bit hard for me to sit and work through something all the way. But when I have that list and I get to cross off one thing and go on to the next, it really helps me to stay focused. Warmth is really important because of the cold quality of Vata. And so another imbalance that wasn't listed is that Vata, when elevated, can show up as just being cold more often than anybody else. And so it's good to eat warming foods or spices. When you are having a lot of cold happening in the Agni, the digestive fires, it tends to take them down. And that's why you tend to not feel hungry. So if you eat warmer foods or spices, it'll help to activate that Agni, get it going again. And that should help with digestion. It's great to share warm moments. So if you're feeling really detached and you don't know why, see if you can hook up with loved ones and friends and just bring a little bit of that warmth back to your heart, back to your life. And wear layers. Keep yourself warm. Keep the environment you're in warm. Maybe have a space heater, or if you have a stove, keep a fire in there. Whatever it is that you do to keep your environment warm, that is going to make you happy. It's going to keep you in balance. And then also serenity. Look at taking time to be in silence or do things that bring you peace. Meditation is a great thing to implement for Vata. You might want to remove stimulation from your environment that's going to be distracting. Looking at, before you go to bed, just shutting off all screens, turning off the televisions, turning off your phone or putting it on airplane mode, and just taking time in silence. It's also good to think about speaking less. So the thing about Vata is that they govern communication, and sometimes they can just kind of talk and talk and talk, and it might be good to challenge yourself to listen more than you speak, as that will help you to feel less overwhelmed, like you just can't get everything out that you want to say. So the next one we want to look at is elevated Pitta dosha. This can show up as anger, frustration, or irritability, indigestion that can show up as heartburn, headaches, hot flashes and fevers, diarrhea, and loose stools. So that is excess heat in the body. It can also show up as breakouts. acne that tends to be more red and painful to the touch. Some concepts of balancing pitta would be adding in that cooling element. So taking time and space to cool down if you feel fired up or angry, adding cooling foods to your diet like mint, coconut milk, or water, cold water, or watermelon, and anything cooling that will help pitta in the stomach to just settle down those digestive fires and also the heat in the body. Pitta, when elevated, it's the only dosha that will allow for drinking ice water. Otherwise, you should be having your water at room temperature for it to best assimilate into the tissue layers. Then you want to look at moderation. Pitta loves moderation, so try to break up your tasks for the day and only do a little at a time. Eat in moderation and do small meals throughout the day. A lot of times it's said that you only want to eat 3 meals a day, and that's really big for kapha, but do small meals. You can have a bite-sized meal here and there, a little snack, and that'll just kind of keep feeding that digestive fire. You want to take your exercise down and moderate it. So the thing about pitta is they love a challenge, and when it comes to exercise, a lot of times it feels like when that pitta is elevated, you want to just go for it, but it's good to moderate. Do short bursts and repetition in your yoga practice, maybe doing just a sprint instead of a long jog. Different things like that is going to really help. And then also let go. Pitta likes to be in control, so implement the opposite and see if you can let go of control when pitta is out of balance. Allow other people to take the reins. If you work in a group, see if you can delegate some of your responsibilities. Let go of your expectations. A lot of times pitta dominant people tend to hold high expectations for other people in their lives because they're so passionate that they expect people to show up in the same way. But try to lower your expectations and just meet people where they are. Surrender to what is. So if you're looking at having elevated kapha dosha, here's some things that might come up. Low energy, sluggish digestion, feeling stubborn or complacent, trouble waking and feeling well rested when you wake up in the morning, weight gain or weight outside of your normal range, mucus buildup in the lungs and the nasal cavity, mucus in your stools, and depression or feeling very stuck in your emotions, stuck in where you are in your life. That will all show up when kapha is elevated. Some concepts for balance would be stimulation. So doing activities that stimulate the body and the mind. Get up and move. Generate heat and movement and challenge yourself. This is the one dosha where you can take on those challenges. And it might be kind of hard to step into those challenges. It might be hard to get onto the mat every morning. It might be hard to go to the gym or go out to take that walk. But once you get in it, that endurance will kick in and you're going to love it. You're going to be able to stick with it. So mix up your routine and find stimulation from day to day. And that might look like setting a schedule, but maybe saying, I have some freedom in this schedule. So I know what I need to get done today, but I'm going to move things around a bit. I'm not just going to follow the list from 1 to 5 because I am going to give myself that freedom. Kapha loves freedom. So the next would be looking at lightening things, lightening your workload, lightening the food that you eat, eating those lighter foods like we talked about earlier in the webinar. This can work both inside and out. So try to lighten your outlook as well. Lighten the thoughts. If you tend to talk down on yourself, see if you can eliminate some of that negative self-talk. And it might be, that you eliminate it piece by piece, but the lighter you can be on yourself, the less depressed or stuck you're going to feel in your emotions. So it's a good time to breathe and imagine the breath carrying out whatever is holding you down. And then also looking at warmth. Kapha loves warmth. It makes them melt. It makes them flow. If you think about winter time and that icy, cold buildup of snow, and then going into spring where everything melts away, that's what warmth does for Kapha. So finding warmth and connection. Kaphas love love and deep friendships and partnerships. Eating spicy foods or pungent foods, flavors. There are different drying flavors that are even good. And drinking hot teas, and also just taking that time to bring in warmth and love on your own. So it might just be like taking a moment to tell yourself how awesome and beautiful and amazing you are, or journaling about how much you have deep self-love for yourself, even if it's not there at first. Just kind of implementing that practice and trusting that over time it will help to bring balance. And then also just going back to that dry element, Kapha is oily and wet. So adding some dryness to your routine through eating light and dry foods will really help with clearing up some of that moisture. All right, so we have come to the end of getting all of that juicy information. And of course, the first thing you want to do with the information is implement it. And so sometimes this can be challenging. While we are so good at taking in a lot of knowledge and doing these webinars and learning about what we have to do, the hardest thing afterwards can be implementing it into your daily life. And that's where I come in. I want to help you with that. So I am going to offer you here a couple of things that might work for you and just kind of help you along your process. So the first is that if you feel like this is something that resonates with you, I invite you to set up a free Sexy Sacred Balance assessment call with me. This is a time where we get to hop on the phone or hop on Zoom, talk one-on-one about the imbalances that you're experiencing. And it's a 30-minute call that will help you go into these imbalances, and we'll talk about what you can implement and maybe some tips that will help you to stick to implementing these changes. And then I also have a coaching course that I offer, which is the Sexy Sacred Balance coaching course. And I offer it in increments of 3 months or 6 months. And since you're here for this webinar today, I am offering you 25% off if you decide that you want to do the coaching with me. So you might be wondering, why is the course so long? 3 months is a huge commitment. 6 months is even bigger, and I totally understand that. But here's the thing. It takes 21 days to implement a new habit. When it comes to health and imbalances, it takes 3 months to actually start seeing a shift, and about 6 months to make sure that there's a lasting change that occurs. And so throughout this 3 to 6 month time period, I will be your partner in empowerment the entire time. The whole point of this is that we want to implement sustainable transformation, and that takes time. And balance is a lifelong journey. So if we're working together for 3 months, then think about what that's going to do for the next 3 years. And if we're working together for 6 months, think about what that's going to do for the rest of your life. Whether it's a 3-month commitment or a 6-month commitment, when you fully commit to yourself and making these positive and powerful shifts and changes in your lives, then you're committing to your elevation, to your balance, and ultimately to the world. Because when you can show up for yourselves, you can show up better for the world. So here's a little glimpse into what you'll experience if you do decide to do that Sexy Sacred Balance coaching with me. We're going to help you get clear on your intention about what is keeping you in the cycle of suffering, then work to break the cycle with mindset alignment practices. So this is that element of balancing the mind. A lot of times what's actually keeping us out of balance is mental beliefs, these core beliefs that have governed the way that we live our lives and the way that we show up. And a lot of times it's stuff that we take on that we don't even know we have. And a lot of times it doesn't even belong to us. It's something we've taken on in childhood. So we'll work on removing those limiting beliefs so that you can implement new beliefs that help you to sustain your transformation. We'll also implement a cleanse if that's necessary, which typically it's very helpful, or a dietary and lifestyle change that will help you find that balance, and it will all be based on Ayurvedic practices. We'll implement meditation, sacred self-care, and sacred womb practices. Part of my learning is that I also facilitate yoni steams, and I will help you learn how to steam your yoni in the comfort of your own home, and I'll help you learn about the right herbs to use based on whatever imbalance is showing up. So when we go back to that idea of sexual energy being a pillar of health, we want to look at the fact that the reproductive tissue layer is the last layer of digestion. And so when we have different imbalances occurring in our body as women, this will often show up in our menstrual cycle. So we'll go over what's going on in your menstrual cycle, how you can track your period to see what your imbalances are, and use practices like yoni steaming and different Ayurvedic techniques to help you get into your sexy sacred balance. I'll also offer you custom yoga videos based on what your personal needs are, and meditations that will help you to implement and sustain a powerful meditation practice based on your needs as well. And we'll also do sessions where I guide you one-on-one, so you don't have to approach a practice like meditation alone if it's something that you're new to. We'll also discover which herbs will work best for your imbalance. So I am also an affiliate of Banyan Botanicals. So I work with them, and I can get you some discounts in case there are different herbs that you need to implement into your lifestyle to help you find balance. Now, the thing about herbs is that you don't necessarily have to take herbs for your entire life. It's just something that if there is an imbalance that is more chronic, these herbs can be very helpful in terms of getting you in balance. And so it typically takes about 3 months for herbs to set in and have an effect. And over that time, you'll be able to see what is happening for you with your current imbalances. And then also, I offer 24/7 coaching. So you have access to me at any time of the day. And this is because when we are embarking on a journey where we're making lifestyle changes, a lot can come to the surface, and it can be challenging at times. And I want to honor that. I really want us to look at the truth of what this work means. While it's beautiful and it is sacred and it's helping you to implement some amazing practices into your life, it can also bring up a lot. And I want to be here for you at all times for whatever comes up. Aside from that, there are also 4 meetings that we'll have over Zoom or over the phone where we'll just tap in about where we are in terms of your balance schedule. So there you have it. We have made it to the end, and I am so happy that you stuck with it. It's time for Q&A. So are there any questions that have come up for you throughout this webinar? And I'm going to go ahead and just pop back in here. So let me know if you have any questions. In the meantime, I'm leaving a link for setting up a sexy sacred balance assessment in the chat. So if you want to set that up, you can follow that link and schedule a time to have a phone call with me. I would love to speak with you one-on-one. Any questions that come up about sexy sacred balance, about Ayurveda? Maybe you're wondering about your different imbalances that you're experiencing and wanting to know what that means in terms of the doshas. I would love to assist you here. I'll just give you a few more moments. So, Angela, most of the quizzes I've taken have me at almost equal Pitta, Vata, and Kapha. Can you email me the link? Yes, totally. So, yeah, I can email you the link. Um, and that's totally fine if you're not ready for coaching yet, and totally understandable. That's why I offer these free calls, because sometimes we just need to talk to someone about what's going on and have somebody give us more insight one-on-one. So what you explained here is called tridoshic in Ayurveda. That means that you have an equal balance of that Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Now, a lot of times people might think, oh, that's great, I'm fully balanced. But actually, what it means is that you might have to work a little bit harder to keep yourself in balance, because it's kind of like your fault line is directly across, and anything that you add can throw you out. So if you tend to eat something that's more spicy foods, then Pitta might go out of balance right away. If you eat drier foods, and Vata might go out. I mean, it's really easy to throw yourself out of balance. And so for you, it's going to be really important to really stay on top of your practices every single day. A lot of times in Ayurveda, while it can take 3 months to see changes that bring you back towards balance, it can also take 3 months to see things go out of balance as well. So that means that you might have an imbalance in the body, but it's not really manifesting for you to see until maybe 3 months later. And also, that means that different shifts will occur in about 3 months apart. So you might take a quiz and it's August and it tells you that you are equal in Pitta, Vata, and Kapha, and that's your current state of equilibrium, your current constitution, or I'm sorry, your current balance. But then 3 months later, you might take the quiz and it tells you that you have elevated Pitta or elevated Kapha. So that's what that means, is that you really want to pay attention to the practices that you're implementing. Does that answer your question? And yeah, I'll make sure that I email you that link as well. Awesome. Yes. I'm so glad that you were at Yoga Fort. That's absolutely amazing. I had such a fun time. So, for those of you who don't know what Yoga Fort is, Yoga Fort is part of Tree Fort Festival that takes place in Boise, Idaho. And it was my first festival where I got to teach yoga and I taught about the elements. So, thank you for joining in on the class, Angela. I'm so glad that you showed up for the webinar today and that I was able to share more information with you about Ayurveda. Awesome. You're so welcome. So, are there any more questions before we close out here? I also want to share with you the special gift that I have, but I'll give you a chance to ask any other questions that might come up. Right. So, that special gift, thank you for sticking around. In your email, I will be sending out a special yoga flow for relaxation. So, I have created a yoga flow that's really great if you want to do that before bed, or if there's a time in the middle of your day that you want to just drop in and do some yoga. You can follow along with me. And it's kind of a good idea of what your custom yoga videos will look like. So I am so excited to send that to you. And the other gift is going to be that guided meditation on the elements, which I believe, Angela, you've already received. So with that, you'll be able to implement both and just tap into some juicy relaxation. And that's just a special gift from me to you. So that'll show up in your email later. And if there are no more questions, we'll go ahead and close out for the day. And I just want to end by saying thank you so much for joining in. Thank you for saying yes to your sexy sacred balance. Thank you for taking the time to learn about Ayurveda and this beautiful holistic life science that pairs up with yoga and helps you to balance your mind and your body and your spirit. It's so important now more than ever that we find balance in our bodies, because when we can do that, we can show up for all of the stuff that's going on in the world, and there's so much. And if we don't have our health in alignment like we should, then there's no way that we can show up for other people. We can't give what we don't have. And right now, we are being called to give a lot in so many different parts of our lives. So that's why I do this work. I really want to help you show up to the world as your best self and feel fully confident, fully balanced, and have a lot of beautiful sacred practices that you can implement to help you replenish yourself when you go home at night or when you wake up in the morning. So thank you so much for joining in. Check your email for that special yoga video gift. And if you have any questions, you want to set up that sexy sacred balance assessment call, go for that, do that. That link will be in your email as well. And I can't wait to get on the phone with you and talk with you one-on-one and just talk about health, talk about sexy sacred balance. So thank you again, and I hope you have an amazing night. See you later. Oh, one last thing. Also check your email for the replay of this webinar, because I will be sending that out as well. So you can tap back into this webinar whenever you want to get this juicy information. Have a good one.